ॐ भूर्भुवः स्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. In this video I am going to describe Atma sakshatkara or self-realization. This is the direct awareness of the self. Self means Atma. So this is the direct awareness of the self, graciously expounded to Guha by Isvara himself, Shiva, the foremost and first Lord, seated as the self in my heart. So this has been stated by Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi. As per Bhagwan Ramana Maharshi, Lord Shiva or God himself takes the form of Atma present in the spiritual heart of each and every living being. Now this is the statements of Lord Shiva. That Shiva further says, number 1, Guha, I shall tell you about a different way to reach that reality which pervades partless in all, too subtle though to be grasped by the mind. Second, by which the knowledge of awareness is well attained, knowing which to become Shiva himself. That has not been told to any by me today, from me that wisdom here. 3. Handed down by the lineage of gurus and beyond the ken of logicians. This is for liberation from the bondage of the birth-death cycle. Its supreme vision shines at all places. 4. He who is the one pervading all things, he who has manifested as all, he who has faces in all directions, who is beyond thought, who remains himself as all the verities and transcends them too, is the self. He transcends all verities. He is beyond the reach of speech, mind and name. I am that Shiva self. Thus you should meditate with perfectly undifferentiated mind on Shiva. 6. Firmly established as the eternal entity, imperishable and undifferentiated, the all-pervasive partless knowledge that cannot be fathomed by the mind, it shines with nothing prior to compare. 7. Without stain, indestructible, the totally serene, the knowledge transcending all objects, beyond the pale of thought, conception and doubt, that supreme I am, no doubt about this. 8. That supreme divinity, Shiva, indeed am I, of the nature of all the mantras and transcending all the mantras, devoid of dissolution and creation. 9. What is visible, what is invisible, the moving and stationary, all these are pervaded by me. I am the Lord of this universe. All shine because of me. 10. Filled with a variety of forms, one different from the other, filled with a galaxy of worlds, all this universe from Shiva down to the earth are all established in me. 11. Whatever is seen in this world, whatever is heard in this world, whatever shines, conceptualized as inside and outside, all these are pervaded by me, the all-pervading one. Realize this. 12. Though considering himself the self, he desires to attain that Shiva, the Supreme Self, as one apart. Whoever contemplates on Shiva, thus in delusion, will not attain Shivahood by such contemplation. Know this. 13. Shiva is other than I am other than Shiva. Uproot this attitude of differentiation. I indeed am Shiva. This conviction that is non-dual, ever practice. 14. Full of this non-dual conviction, he who everywhere abides ever in the self shall see in all things, in all bodies, only that Shiva self. Of this there is no doubt. I explain these terms. See, Atma and Shiva are not different. Atma is Shiva, Shiva is Atma. Further I explain, Atma of each and everybody is same, because every Atma is part and parcel of Shiva. Shiva means God. 15. Whoever has this conviction always of the self shall rid himself of delusion and dual perception. That yogi will attain to omniscience. So it is said in the Vedas, this you should know. 16. He who is praised in all scriptures as the unborn, the Ishvara, that formless and attributeless self, he indeed I am. There is no doubt about this. 17. Only he who does not know his true nature is the Jiva, that is subject to the dharmas, characteristics of birth, death, and so on. He who knows his true self is one who is eternal. He is the pure. He is Shiva. Without doubt, know this. Let me clarify the difference between Atma and Jiva. When the Atma is embodied in the human body and it exists there with the help of vital force, that is prana shakti, so this we call as individual soul or jiva. But in the real sense, Atma is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, like Lord Shiva. But the embodied soul or the personal soul present in the human spiritual heart is having the veils of mind, ego, maya, and tendencies, propensities, vasanas. So we may say that why Atma as being indefinite, omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, the individual's Atma is finite. The reason being the Atma of an individual is veiled by ego, mind, vasanas, and maya. So we can see our Atma as omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent by removing the veils like mind, ego, vasanas, and maya, etc. 17. Only he who does not know his true nature is the jiva, that is subject to the dharmas, characteristics of birth, death, and so on. He who knows his true self is one who is eternal. He is the pure, he is Shiva, without doubt. Know this. When a sadhaka is able to eliminate his mind, ego, vasanas, and maya, he is called to be a self-realized person, a jnani, and he will not come to this world under the death and birth cycle. 18. Hence, what man of discrimination should inquire carefully and directly realize is the self that itself shines twofold as the transcendental and the inferior divisions, the gross and the subtle. 19. The supreme nirvana is the higher, the inferior is manifest as the creation. Mantras are spoken of as its gross form. What abides in changeless awareness is the subtle. 20. Sanmukha, without realizing it, Atma, what avails explanations thereof in endless ways? Tell me, all these are only a wonderful display of words, the cause for the delusion of the mind. 21. All the dharmas, qualities abide in the self, whichever of them the individual self, jiva, imagines, whereby he concentrates his thoughts again and again on it. He will attain that object. There is no doubt of this. Further, I explain difference between ego and Atma. When a person identifies his self with the body, then we say this is individual self, jiva or ego. Number 22. Thus has been told by me as the knowledge of the self, what has been gathered succinctly in a condensed form, all by any means is of the nature of the self. Realizing this, may you ever be strengthened in the thoughts of the self. 23. The deities, the Vedas, the fire sacrifices, the various gifts to priests in the course of their performance, none of this exists there in the nature of the self. Be tuned to the blemishless, omnifaceted, steadfast knowledge of the self. 24. To the jiva drowning in the vast ocean of the birth-death cycle and seeking a refuge, what affords refuge is only that knowledge of the self, not anything else. Know this. 25. He who becomes of the nature of the Supreme and realizes it as it really is, shall, though experiencing all changing states, attain liberation without effort. Be aware of this. Here I explain the term liberation. When we are able to eliminate mind, vasanas, ego, and the veil of Maya, then we see our Atma. This is the stage of liberation or self-realization. We are already liberated, but we are under the ignorance of being in the form of ego, mind, and Maya. 26. There is no greater blessing anywhere apart from the gaining of the self. Meditate ever on the self. He who is the self, he indeed is the one all-pervasive supreme self. Be aware of this. 27. It is not the prana, vital air, nor the apana, the air that travels down, even nor the instruments superior even to these, the senses, mind, and such. Reach ever for the thought of the self. That is the omniscient and the perfect. 28. It is neither inside nor outside, not afar, nor nearby, nor does it fit in any place. That Supreme is formless, all pervasive and effulgent. Direct your thoughts over to it. 29. It is across, above and below, inside and outside, which are divisions ever established firmly everywhere. The wide, the self-luminous self, ever meditate on that more and more. 30. Not a void, not a non-void. It is also the non-void and the void, pervasive everywhere, but without predilections. Ever think of this self. 31. Afflictionless and without any sport for itself, bereft of caste, name and form, that taintless, attributeless self you should unceasingly meditate upon. 32. With no refuse, with nothing to support it, beyond the range of comprehension, without parallel, faultless by nature, the eternal, the self has, the self that is so, meditate upon it joyfully forever. 33. Embracing dispassion and thus desisting from all karmic activity, shying away from society, one should thereafter ever meditate upon the self within oneself, in oneself, by oneself, be aware of this. 34. Country and lineage, the traditional caste and style of life, effacing various thoughts arising in the wake of these, the wise man should meditate daily upon his real nature. What is real nature? Our Atma is our real nature. Our Atma is the natural bliss and natural peace. When we say Atma, that indicates bliss, peace, and our real nature. That is called Sat Chit Ananda. Existence, consciousness, and bliss. 35. This is the mantra, this is the deity, this is indeed what is called meditation. This indeed is tapas. Casting afar all such thoughts, concentrate on the nature of your own self. 36. The self is without thought. Make it impossible for the thought-oriented mind to think at all. Make the mind that thinks to get settled on the self. Let not the mind think of anything else. The mind is created by the thoughts arising from the self. The continuity of thoughts arising from the Atma give rise to the mind and ego. When these thoughts and ego are going outwardly, the mind and ego are attached with the affairs of the world, are having negative energy, but the same mind, thoughts, and ego directed to move towards the self, towards the spiritual heart. That time they are attached with the positive energy. They are in the pure form. So, pure mind is nothing but the self. 37. The self is not something that can be thought of, nor is it something that cannot be thought of. It is not thought itself. It is indeed itself thought. What does not lean towards any of the above, the Supreme, that is the Self, ever meditate upon it. 38. Meditate ever on that which is beyond the reach of the mind, allowing no refuge for the mind, the joy that is attained in abundance in that self that is beyond all verities and complete. 39. Without any differences and beyond the reach of thinking, without any precedent, without anything similar, that which is the utmost frontier and extolled as the supreme bliss, be immersed in it. 40. Discarding all desire for objects, destroying the moods of the mind, the non-dual state of being the one. When the mind ceases to be, is the one called supreme bliss. 41. All directions, all places, all times are conductive for the yoga of the self. So say the scriptures. Differences of caste and orders of life and such cannot cause any differences in the least to the nature of knowledge. 42. The color of milk is one, the colors of the cows many, so is the nature of knowledge. Observe the wise ones. Beings of various marks and attributes are like the cows. Their realization is the same. This is an example we should know. I will explain this example. See, every human being has Atma, and attributes of the Atma of each individual is the same, but different comes due to the veiling of Atma by mind, ego, vasanas, and Maya. So this is the reason people are honest, people are dishonest, people are gentle, people are fighter type. So this is all due to the differences in their thought process. 43. Reality. Brahma intimately pervades all. It shines with faces in all directions, established in it without a pause. Think not of differences such as regions and directions. 44. In this world itself, there is no mark, lifestyle, or tradition for the one who becomes of the nature of the self. He has nothing to gain by any action of his, nor action need he perform. No action need he perform, nor any injunctions prescribing actions apply to him. Know this. 45. Moving or standing or sleeping, waking or taking food or water, in the face of the wind, the cold and the sun, unaffected will he be in any state at any time. I'll explain this. See, the environmental factors affect our body, mind and ego, but our Atma remains unaffected by any external climatic or environmental factors. Simple. 46. Fear, indigence, sickness, burning fever, indigestion, even when all these affect one established in the self, peaceful and shining full. Bodily imbalances will not affect our Atma, only our body will be sufferer. Atma will be free from all the ailments of our body. He is never at his wits' end on any count. He will savor the satisfaction of the self. 47. Whether going forward or returning, I am not the one that moves. When inquired into, there is no going or coming. In the ever-changing dharma of Prakriti, the cause of illusive creation, I never was immersed, nor am I now. 48. All activities prescribed are the work of Prakriti, the illusion. Prakriti, so spoken of, is the source of all action. I am the immaculate, I am the actionless. Thus, indeed, will reflect the wise man, the knower of truth. 49. For him there is no bondage of Prakriti, the delusion. He has earned the name of the liberated one. He shall never be touched by the defects spoken of as the action of Prakriti. 50. The manner in which a lamp shines, destroying darkness with its light, in like manner, by destroying the enveloping darkness arising from inexplicable ignorance, the self of the nature of the pure light of knowledge shines. 51. Even as the lamp with the fuel of ghee spent attains peace, the yogi continuously contemplating on the truth of the self will be at peace in the self. Nothing greater is there to be attained than the self. This is the truth. 52. When the pot is carried, the space within the pot, though conceived of as carried, is not the pot only that is carried. The self too, like space, remains motionless. 53. When the pot breaks, the space in the pot merges one with the great space. When the inert body passes away, the self, seemingly in the body, becomes immediately one with the Supreme Self. 54. Thus the Lord, who is omniscient, spoke with authority. Then one who is liberated, severed from all bondage, becomes all pervasive and less, with absolute awareness. 55. Discarding totally all the agmas, attaining the pure samadhi of Atma Yoga, realizing by due inquiry there is nothing else greater than this, destroy all wrong ideas in the mind of difference. 56. Meditating continuously on the great knowledge, thus that yogi who attains ever the bodiless nature, that pure jnani whose dharma is the dharma of that bodiless nature alone, is the liberated one, shining inside and out, reaching across to every place. 57. Omniscience and bliss and mature wisdom, remaining independent, limitless strength, attaining all these, he shines ever, the self without afflictions, with an immaculate body, he as the self merges in Shiva. 58. Japa of the name, worship, bathing in holy waters, ritual sacrifices. None of these or others are needed. The fruits of dharma and adharma, water oblations to forefathers, none of these are for him. 59. No injunctions for observance, no fast, nothing required by way of getting into or out of any action, no vows of celibacy for him, no this. 60. Not having any recourse to falling into the fire or water, or falling from the mountain top, enjoy the feast of the knowledge of Shiva, eternal and pure, rid of the rules applying to all creation, move about as you please. 61. I tell you, this is the truth, the truth, the truth, thrice over. There is nothing greater than this, nothing greater is there to be known, nothing at all, nowhere ever. 62. rid of any blemish, rid of ignorance, with pure intellect, being the pure self, by the pure conviction that all that is seen is pure, meditating on the immaculate nature, he shall attain awareness. I summarized these very important points once again at the end of this video. My dear friends, our Atma is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent, like Lord Shiva or Brahma. But we are not able to experience the omnipresence, omniscience, and omnipotency of our Atma, because due to the veiling of our Atma by our mind, ego, vasanas, mayas, and sanskaras carried over from our previous births. So, due to this, the omniscient Atma is confined to the state of a finite entity. To realize the real nature of our Atma, we have to try to eradicate our mind, thought process, ego, veil of Maya, and vasanas. We have to put our own efforts to achieve this goal. It is not very difficult, but at the same time, it is difficult for those who do not want to put the real efforts. Bhagwan Sri Ramana Maharshi has revealed the most effective process of self-realization, that is, using the process of who am I. Who am I should not be used as a mantra, but it should be used to inquire about who am I. In this who am I, who is the inquiry, is the existence. I is here. That is the important factor. This I is our ego. So question is put by the ego to the ego. Repeatedly, when the ego puts questions to itself, the ego is hurt, it feels insulted, and repeating the same inquiry, this ego becomes weak. By more and more practice, this ego becomes weaker, and finally it vanishes forever. When the ego vanishes, the arising of thoughts from the Atma also ceases, because our thoughts are caused by the ego and the vasanas present in our chitta or subconscious mind. When the ego is eliminated, ego is nothing but the identification of the self with the body. I am the body. This is the false awareness. This is non-Atma. This is non-Atmic entity. And this is the cause of all our pains, sufferings, and indulgence into the cycle of birth and death. So we have to put sincere efforts to eradicate the ego, mind, maya, and vasanas. So the process of self-inquiry explained by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi is the most direct method for self-realization leading to liberation. So thank you for watching this video. Thank you, my dear friends. Namaskar.
I further give the explanations by Bhagavan Sri Ramana Maharshi about self-realization or Atma Shakshatkara. This will be in the form of questions put by devotees to Maharshi and thereby reply by the Maharshi. Question: what is the self referred to in Atma Sansthan, fixing it in the self? Maharshi replies: do you not know yourself? You certainly exist, or do you deny your existence? The question may arise, who is this self? Only if you do not exist, but you cannot ask anything unless you exist at the same time. Your question shows that you exist. Find out who you are, that's all. Next question. I have read many books, but my mind does not turn to the self. Maharshi Ramana replies, because the self is not in the books, but it is in you. Reading books makes one learned. That is its purpose, and it is fulfilled. Question: what is Atma Sakshatkara, self-realization? Maharshi replies, you are the Atma self, and that sakshat here and now also. Where is the place for kara, accomplishment in it? This question shows that you think you are the non-self, or you think that there are two selves, the one to realize the other. It is absurd that you identify yourself with the gross body lies at the root of this question. Well, this question arises now. Did it arise in your sleep? Did you not exist then? Certainly, you did exist in sleep. What is the difference between these two states? That the question should arise now but not in sleep. Now you think that you are the body. You see things around you and you want to see the self in a similar manner. Such is the force of habit. The senses are mere instruments of perception. You are the seer, remain as the seer only. What else is there to see? Such is the state in deep sleep. Therefore, this question does not arise then. Atma sakshatkara, self-realization, is thus only anatma nirasana, giving up the non-self. Atma sakshatkara, that is self-realization. Mind and senses try their best to get you immersed in Maya all the time. It is as difficult as making Ganga river to flow back to its source, to make the mind rest on Atma by repeatedly training the mind through Omkara or Gayatri Mantra or Rama Nama Japa. Restless mind should be made to concentrate on Atma to achieve peace of mind, happiness, bliss in this life, and also to avoid repeated birth-death cycle. Shruti says, Atma va are drishtavya shrotavya manthavyo nididhyasanathavya. Yajnavalkya tells to his wife Maitreyi that Atma only to be seen, heard, repeated in mind, concentrated on it. Take back the mind inside you to Hriday, where Atma is seemingly located. Repeated effort, patience, determination, renunciation, and intense bhakti should take over you. The self is without thought. Make it impossible for the thought-oriented mind to think at all, causing the mind to get settled on the self. Let not the mind to think anything else. We have to meditate always on the self, which is beyond the reach of the mind and extolled as the supreme bliss. We have been brought up from our childhood to pray God as if He is outside us, as source of supreme power, and He will grant whatever we pray for. This thought has to be wiped out, and in its place, I am Atma, that is Brahma, I am Shiva, has to be firmly established. All places, all directions, all times are conducive for the sadhana, practice of yoga of self. Differences of caste, social status, gender cannot cause any difference in the progress, knowledge, and experience of this yoga, just as color of milk is white, color of cows many. Now the question arises as to how Antahkarna, mind, is able to experience self. Experiencing self is definitely possible, as we have seen Many saints talk about that experience, and from their experience, many others are getting guided towards this illumination. Following sloka from Karika of Sri Godapajacharya, Shankaracharya's Guru says, Atma Satyanu Bodhina na Sankalpayate yada emanastham tadha yathi grahya bhave thadagraham. If one gets the knowledge of that soul is real, satya, mind will not give any sense of form, then mind becomes mindless, amanas, because mind's sensing faculty and its result both will vanish. There is no shape or form to sense when concentrating on self. Hence, mind becomes incapable to grasp or stick to any form and becomes mindless. We can observe a similar situation during deep sleep also, when mind rests on prana. Thus, in mindless state, everything is seen as Atma only and nothing else, which is called amnastva. Mind merges in Atma, then the so-called Atma sakshatkara takes place. In the case of a yogi who has accomplished Kundalini Jagrati, Samadhi state remaining as Atma is easy, as mindless state is achieved instantly and repeatedly depending on his duration of meditation and frequency. As mentioned earlier, Atma is always sakshat, here and now. Kara, accomplishment, is always there, hence irrelevant. As I am only Atma and there is nothing in between blocking it. Word sakshatkara gives wrong usage, as I am experienced by myself. Other forms of worship, bathing in holy waters, japa or name oblations to fire as sacrifice, none of these are needed. Fruits of dharma or adharma, water oblations to forefathers, none of these are for him. Highest level of purusartha, achievement in human birth, is the experience of self. Please note, there is nothing else need be known or achieved other than this. The face of the person who has experienced Atma shines bright and remains peaceful. He is beyond Maya and not affected by it. Maya is the source of all action. No action need be performed, as he is actionless and liberated. He has attained awareness. So, this is the brief explanation by Ramana Maharshi to achieve the phenomenon of self-realization leading to liberation. Thank you for watching this video. Namaskar.